Hey, I'm Rachel,
And I'm Amanda, and this is Beyond a Ballot.
powered by DoorDash.
You know what? I may have changed political parties, but I never changed my principles. And I am a Canadian first, or a Newmarket Aurorian first. I will always stand up for what I think is in the best interest of the community. That's what I campaigned on. That's why I made the move that I did, because there were some important principles at stake.
Politics is supposed to be about conviction, about values, and about the promises you make to voters when you put your name on a ballot. So, what happens when an elected official switches sides? Today, we're talking about one of the most controversial moves in parliamentary politics, crossing the floor. From high profile defections in Ottawa to dramatic switches in provincial legislatures, including moments involving figures like Belinda Stronach and Leona Alislev. Floor crossings have sparked outrage, reshaped governments, and in some cases, altered the balance of power overnight. Is it betrayal? Is it principle? Or is it pure political survival? Me and Amanda are here to break it all down. Amanda, what a week.
I'm wondering how many episodes we've started with "What a week."
That's like our tagline. I think we're
I
going to
know.
start making t-shirts. What a week.
What a week.
I'll be honest. I didn't think this is what we were going to be talking about this week. But for those that don't know, we saw another floor crossing in the House of Commons. This one highly anticipated. Matt Genereux, an MP from Edmonton who was sitting with the Conservative caucus, is now sitting as a Liberal member of Parliament. And for those that don't remember, about 10 weeks ago, Matt Genereux, there was a lot of speculation about whether or not he would be crossing the floor. A lot of back and forth. He put out a statement saying that he wanted to spend more time with his family, asking people, interestingly, not to contact his family. And he said that he had told Pierre Poilievre that he would resign in the spring session. So the Conservatives were waiting for him to step down, for there to be a by-election in that riding. And now we know that Matt Genereux will continue to sit as the MP for that riding. Big day. I think, although it was kind of anticipated, the fact that this was now the third Conservative member of Parliament to cross the floor, it hit pretty hard. And so what were you thinking? I was surprised. Were you surprised?
I was a little surprised. I think that there was a lot of speculation prior to Poilievre's leadership review, the Conservative review, that there would be if there was going to be a floor crosser, it was going to happen just before that review. When it didn't happen, I thought, maybe he's pretty safe right now. So this follows, of course, the floor crossing of both Chris D'Entremont and Michael Ma. So these are quick succession of floor crossing. And this, floor crossings are not new. We've actually had 300 floor crossers since Confederation.
What?
Yes.
I did not know that.
And this is not the largest number of floor crossers in any parliament.
Ooh.
The 39th parliament has had the most with 4.
4.
So
okay,
we're getting close.
3, they had 4.
And we also, but I think it's the cluster of floor crossing that has happened in like quick succession that has given us a lot, as commentators, a lot of fodder. And what it has sparked, I think, is a really interesting debate on this topic, which is not a new debate. So on one side, you will hear people talk about the fact that, this isn't about opportunism. It's about alignment. This is about principles. This is about putting the country before the party. On the other side, namely the Conservative side right now, you will hear that this is a deep betrayal of the constituents who democratically elect these individuals in each riding. And I honestly think if I take off all my partisan hats, I think there's merit in both arguments. I was particularly interested. We asked Leona to join us on this podcast, and she issued us a statement, our first media statement. Do you have it there?
I don't, but I want to just give a little bit of background while you find it.
Got it.
Leona Aslov was a liberal member of parliament who crossed the floor to the Conservatives under leader Andrew Scheer. And so we asked her to join us today to talk about that experience and why she decided to do that. Here's what she said.
As you can well imagine, there are many considerations that go into making a decision of this magnitude. Members of Parliament are only affiliated with political parties, neither owned nor employed by them. And I still believe that people elect individuals and the values that they embody to represent them. For me, the most important element of my decision was that I was elected as a member of Parliament to serve Canadians, both those who lived in my riding and those across the country, and therefore my loyalty had to be to Canadians and the country first, as I had done throughout my career before Parliament.
Okay, so an interesting insight into some of the thinking behind floor crossing. This is a hard one for me as somebody that really loves parliamentary procedure and the foundations of democracy. But really, like, I think about the moral question here, and I want to highlight this: floor crossing is not a partisan issue. It's really not. We've seen people cross from the Liberals to the Conservatives to the Liberals, the NDP, the Bloc. Like, if you look at the history of these 300 floor crossers, it's all over the place, and it's all dependent on leaders and what the party is doing at the time, policy issues, global issues. There's been tons of reasons why people have crossed the floor. But at the end of the day, it really, really bothers me when people cross the floor, because I am such a loyal person, and I think politics is such a team sport. It kind of feels like if you're like playing for the Vancouver Canucks and all of a sudden another team's giving you the captainship or the more money, and you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna go over there.
You know that happens, right? In sports.
Does it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's
right in
trades.
about sports. Oh, trades. Okay. Well, I don't like that either. Where's the loyalty in sport these days? Oh my God.
Rachel.
But it's so bad. I'm so bad at sports. But the thing, it's like, politics is kind of like a family, and working on the Hill or in a legislature, you feel like you've got your family, and quite frankly, you know, we all work together. We're all trying to work in the best interest of Canadians, and behind the scenes, there actually is a lot of work that goes on across party lines. And so it is sad when people cross the floor, regardless of party, because you're like losing a team member, a family member, somebody you've confided in. And so it bothers me, this floor crossing. The other question that a lot of people have is, should people that cross the floor have to sit as independents before before the next election and then run for the party that they want to join? Do you think that they should do a little timeout first?
I think that the people who typically raise these questions are the people who are losing the MPs at the moment. Let's remember that the Conservatives did not say no when Leona crossed from the Liberals over to them, and you know that's true politics. And in my view, it's pretty hypocritical. I mean, if you are that principled on this particular issue, if you hold it as a core value, then you raise it when you're actually in power. When you can do something about it, when you're in power, or you don't accept. You say, as a party, we will not accept any floor crossers. Of course, the Conservative Party is not saying that. What I think
would
is
say that
fascinating.
if I was leader,
I know
for the
you
record.
would. I know you would, Rach. But the parties are not saying it. They're not saying it because those numbers matter. And when you have a minority government like we have today, where it's like razor thin margin to get to that majority, those seats make a huge difference. Now, there was a lot of confusion today because I heard a lot of people say to me, well, wait a second, doesn't that mean that they have the majority? No, they do not have the majority. Why do they not have the majority? Because Chrystia Freeland resigned her seat in University of Rosedale. Bill Blair resigned his seat in Scarborough Southwest. Because those seats are resigned and going to by-election, they're down 2 seats anyways. And then we had the big controversy that happened this week, right, in Quebec. In the riding of, help me out.
Terrebonne, where the Supreme Court of Canada overturned that election result and sent them back into a by-election. Yep.
Remember that the
crazy.
Liberals won that riding by an astonishing one vote. One vote. That goes to show that every vote really matters.
Absolutely.
So the Liberals are actually down 3 seats, 169. Okay, 169. So where are they at right now? This is where they're at right now.
Wait, and there's one more. There's one more that could happen for the Liberals.
Where?
MP from Quebec is asking Quebec Solidaire, the provincial party in Quebec, to change their rules because male is not allowed to run in that riding currently based on the rules of the party. They're asking that be waived so that Montreal NDP MP Alexandre Belleris, who's sitting in the House right now, could potentially leave his seat, an NDP seat currently, and that could be a win for the Liberals in Quebec if he's allowed to run for the leadership of that provincial party. The Liberals would then, I'm sure, throw a ton of resources into that riding because that would push them over the edge. That would be 4 seats, and that would be a majority government.
Yes.
For the Liberals.
So I think a lot of people were asking yesterday, because there's a lot of rumors and speculation right now that there's an actual pipeline, is what they're saying, pipeline of Conservatives who want to leave the party. Yes. This is the rumor mill.
Oh my God.
So the question that we attacked this week was, what does Carney do? Does he accept more conservative floor crossers, or does he wait, go through these few by-elections, win those ridings in a democratic way, and then see where he stands at that point? That, I think, is the prudent move, because you get your Liberals in the House, elected by Canadians. You're not accepting more floor crossers. But if more floor crossers come after that, I mean, you're not going to get as much criticism for it. So I think that that's an interesting move. But imagine having all these opportunities right now.
Has anyone ever rejected a floor crosser? Maybe. I guess we wouldn't really hear about it.
I think for sure that's happened.
But I think that the foundation of floor crossing and numbers in the House are to be able to govern and put forward your agenda,
of course,
the most easily, right?
Yeah.
So the party with the most seats gets to pass legislation,
yes,
through based on only their members, and so once you have that majority government, and so I can't see a world where people saying, "Oh, we'd like to vote with you," would be a bad thing. I feel like he would. If somebody's offering to come to your team at that point, welcome them with open arms.
Perhaps. Let's talk about the politics of this one, because obviously the thing that has been most in question is the leadership of both Carney and Poilievre as it relates to floor crossings. Poilievre, just as a reminder, has recently come out of a leadership review. He won a whopping 87% of that vote. So seemed to be coming out of this leadership review with a lot of support of his core member base. However, to come out of that leadership review and now face another floor crossing is really tricky territory, in my opinion, for Poilievre. I think that for a few reasons. I think that you don't leave things when they're going well. You don't leave your team when it's going well. I think that there has been some serious discomfort with his tone, his strategy, but most importantly, his electability. And this is the thing that's dogging him right now. He's strong with his base, but is he weak everywhere else, including with his caucus? At the same time, it's unusual to floor cross to a minority situation. It's unusual.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
And
really?
Historically, it's unusual. It's not that it hasn't happened before, but think about it. Like, you're still in a minority, right? Like, it's not. So the only reason that you're crossing then is because you either like the leadership, the stability, the economic direction, the governing plan, the national interests. You as a conservative member, veteran conservative members, we have to ask the question, why are they leaving their party unless they feel that they can represent their constituents in a better way, and Carney has something to offer that Polyev can't give them right now. And that to me is a more important question than should you be allowed to floor cross? What do you think?
Well, I'm going to give an opposite theory.
Okay.
In that, what do they say? Your worst day in government is better than your best day in opposition. And this Conservative Party has now been in opposition for over a decade. I think it's wearing on a lot of people to sit in the opposition, on the opposition side for so long. I think there was a lot of momentum behind Pierre Poilievre around the Conservatives for so long that many people in the Conservative caucus thought, I'm going to be in cabinet in a year. Right. We're going to be in government. We're going to get our agenda through.
Like they could taste it.
Yeah, like what did they say? It was, but polls were showing that.
Totally.
And then this crazy thing happened where Mark Carney came in, revived the Liberal brand and the Liberal Party, and the interesting proposition that Mark Carney is putting on the table as a prime minister. I was going to say as a Conservative prime minister, but it is that he has moved the Liberal Party to the right, and so I think that
or to
there's
the center.
also this. Or to the center. Well, right from
where
where Justin Trudeau was. Yeah. So I think that there's an interesting proposition on the table as well, which is here's a guy who is a Liberal prime minister, but is also pulling support from people that are centrist, that are maybe progressive Conservatives. And you have to remember the Conservative Party of Canada is a big tent party. This was a party that was created between Peter MacKay and Stephen Harper by melding together progressive Conservatives and more conservative right-leaning individuals within the party. Stephen Harper did a phenomenal job of holding that coalition together.
Yes.
And it's not easy. We see it in Conservative parties across Canada. We're seeing it in British Columbia right now with the BC Conservatives. And so I think that this is also an interesting moment for a lot of Conservatives who have been sitting there in opposition for a long time, who almost made it to government or thought they had almost made it to government and are now seeing a leader who is putting forward a plan that potentially resonates with them, the things that they stand for, their constituencies, perhaps, like they feel that they're safe because of Mark Carney's positioning. And so I think it's just like a perfect storm of a breeding ground for that floor crossing, for a path to floor crossing. So
yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
And I think that there's, even in like small circles. So pretty anecdotally, when I talk to Conservative friends who have said, you know what, I like what he's doing. I like what Carney's doing. And I think the gift of being Canadian right now is that we're not so entrenched in our partisan beliefs that we can't acknowledge when a leader is doing a decent job or a good job.
Right.
And I think that the cover that some of these Conservative MPs have as they cross is to relate their crossing to things that the world has hailed Carney as doing really well. So even yesterday when Matt Jennery was talking about the catalytic moment for him, like what was the catalyst that made you decide to move? And he said, like, I listened to that Davos speech. And
okay, but here's my question.
Yes.
Why did he wait a month to do it? That was so long.
I honestly think, I don't know this. Don't call me on this. People don't do that. I think that he was planning to go. I think that they were waiting till the other side of the review, the leadership review.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's so
interesting.
Like timing is everything,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Could have been that. Could not have been that because I don't know. Again, I don't know. But that's my theory.
Yeah, politics is wild.
Politics
in these scenarios
is so wild.
Where you try and have an excuse for things. To the public. So I guess we'll never know. But I think that overall, a lot of Canadians just to wrap up this conversation around floor crossers, a lot of Canadians are very polarized by this topic. There are people against it. There are people for it. Even Matt Jenneru, they were in his riding yesterday talking to constituents, and people were like, I like Matt. Like, it's totally fine. I'll vote for him again. And other people were like, he's a traitor. Right. He should step down. And I think that really just highlights the fabric of of Canadian society. And when we talk about, divisions in many countries, including the United States, those divisions, like, we are so much more aligned in Canada in our politics, and that helps in situations like this, I think.
Totally.
So, yeah, not a great feeling for the Conservatives. I'll put it out there. We're not feeling great today.
No, especially as the Liberals inch closer to that majority, it's definitely within reach. They're just 3 seats away, 3 by-elections in the hopper. So it could easily happen in the next several months, very easily.
It could happen, and we'll have to wait and see. But we will be right back. And now, word from our title sponsor, DoorDash. We're proud to share that Beyond a Ballot continues to be powered by DoorDash. Just like we go beyond a ballot, DoorDash goes beyond delivery. This week, we're sharing Beverly's story from Simcoe, Ontario, who was immediately drawn to getting paid for something she's always loved, driving. After 4 years as a dasher on DoorDash, Beverly found her rhythm. She and her husband work as a team, building a routine that fits around retirement and family life. For Beverly, the biggest benefit of dashing is flexibility. She chooses when to dash, which orders to accept, and how to structure her day. And the additional income has brought her added financial stability and peace of mind. Beverly's story highlights how dashers can decide when and where they work, making it easier to earn on their own schedule with DoorDash. All right, we're back. So last week we touched on the horrific events that took place in Tumbler Ridge, but we wanted to just go back and take a second to talk about the beauty that came out of that memorial last Friday night. Between all of the political leaders in Canada who made the trip to Tumbler Ridge to be amongst the community, to talk to the families of the victims, and to be together to show support. And I think it's important that we talk about that solidarity and that unification of politicians from across the country. Our federal leaders were all there, provincial leaders, municipal leaders, and I think it was a really important moment to show that unity.
Yeah, it was such a, that striking photo that made waves across the country of Polyev and Carney holding hands.
Yeah.
Which felt like the most unlikely thing that could ever happen. I was scrolling Instagram and I came across this, I came across this woman whose name I don't remember. And she wrote an open letter to Carney and Polyev. And the gist of the letter was, she basically said, I spent the last number of years consuming all of this really divisive messaging. And I bought in. I bought into like the nastiness, the ugliness, the name calling, the all of the things. And she's like, and I was there. I was kind of like in it, thought that was the way. And then she said the events of Tumbler Ridge happened, and she watched our political leaders, after having watched what's happening south of the border, how divisive it truly can get. And she watched our leaders make a different choice, to not point fingers, to not play the blame game, but to stand united, to grieve and mourn with the families in the community. And it was just a really powerful reflection of her saying to them how much that moved her, and how she didn't want to live in this place where it's all about the political punchline. It's all about the, who has the the best partisan take all the time.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just about our humanity and the values that make us the country that we are. And I think I said this last week on CBC. I said, in the worst of times, it was the best of us.
Mhm.
And I feel that. I really do feel that. I feel like we rose when we needed to rise, or at least our leaders did. Now, how long that lasts? What do you think?
Well,
is this love fest? Is this kumbaya gonna last, Rachel?
you know, interestingly, so this week, we're going to talk about this in a second, but this week we tabled the BC budget, and I was in Victoria for the budget. I was in the House, and it was because this happened in British Columbia, it is being felt so deeply here. I mean, it's being felt across the country, but here we are really feeling this tragedy. And so I was wondering how they would actually do all the pomp and circumstance around the budget that normally takes place. I will say it was very scaled back, which is appropriate. But interestingly, they first opened the budget session by each leader standing up and talking about their reflections of the week, the tragedy, what had happened. And I heard that the leader of the opposition, Trevor Halford, and the premier, David Eby, actually made an agreement to split talking about each of the victims and their families. And so Trevor Halford stood up and told a story about half of the kids who were killed in this tragedy. And the premier then stood up and followed. And it was horrible. Everyone, there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. But at the same time, seeing that cooperation and seeing them tell the stories of these children together, there was something very significant about that. And I think it was amazing to be in that room and feel the unity amongst everybody in that room, that we were all just British Columbians and all mourning together. Yeah. So I felt that unity for sure this week. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a heavy topic. It's such a hard one to get our heads around.
It
so
is.
And it's always hard to move from that topic to another topic, but you did mention the BC budget.
Yes.
Tell us more. Lots of news coming out of that budget.
Lots of news coming out of British Columbia this week. This was a budget that was much anticipated because we've just seen deficit after deficit in the province of BC. And so much so that BC has almost the highest deficit. Quebec is running a $3 million deficit more. So like almost on par. And yet our population is much smaller. And it was interesting to kind of anticipate what an NDP government, who typically like to tax and spend on public programs, was going to do in the midst of having no money. And really, ultimately, what came out of this was both. It was cutting programs, cutting public servants, and taxing things that you wouldn't even think of. For example,
like what?
Repairing your shoes in British Columbia. Well, they are now charging PST on that. Basic cable packages. There was a $200, if you lived outside of Vancouver, you got a $200 housing credit that is no longer. Pattern making for clothing. Like, I'm thinking, who's sitting in the room thinking, oh, we should tax those pattern makers? It was crazy what came out. But they are trying to find money, and they are trying to also scale back on things like our public service, which has just ballooned over the last 10 years. So ultimately, I think my message on the BC budget is nobody was happy. It was a very expensive budget for everybody in British Columbia. But I think the sad part for me is that a lot of the policies that were in it are ones that will affect seniors. It's people like lower income budgets. Who's using yarn? Seniors. It's being taxed in British Columbia now. So it was a weird budget this week, and definitely a heavy one for British Columbia. Like, everybody's feeling kind of heavy out here.
Did you feel like in British Columbia, the news of the budget or the specifics of the budget were still being eclipsed by much more important news like Tumbler Ridge. Did you feel that, or did you feel that the channel changed and that there was kind of like a renewed focus on we have to get to business, we have to get this budget out the door, we have to get it passed? What was your sense?
Well, both the finance minister and the finance critic started their speeches by saying it's very weird to be operating and doing government business right now. Like that was so acknowledged. But I think there absolutely this budget, the narrative of this budget was changed by the events in Tumbler Ridge, because like I said, everybody's still in this mourning period. Our flags are at half mast still across the province. And, you know, there's victims in hospital still. And I think everyone was acutely aware of that. And so although it was, I would say, an absolutely terrible economic statement for this government, I think there was a definite understanding and perspective almost that like human life is the most important. And so I'm sure that will change over the coming weeks and they will be debating this budget. But it definitely it didn't fall the same way it would have had Tumbler Ridge never happened.
Did EB score any political points?
Oh, good question. I'm going to go with a hard no.
None? Not one?
Not one. In fact,
wow.
He's cutting 15,000 public service jobs, and that's his base. Like those are people that vote for David Eby. So I don't know. His popularity seems to be going down and down. The big question mark, because we love election speculation, is will he call an early election in June? The BC Conservatives are in a leadership race. It's ending May 31st. All eyes are on that June date because leadership races are hard. They are often very divisive, I'll put it that way. And it's hard to reunite the party quickly. So that could be his window of opportunity. But he's definitely not running on this budget. I will tell you that this is not an election.
And in this leadership race, who are we talking about? Who are the people to watch?
There's 11 people running. We have current full disclosure. I am working with Peter Millibar, who I believe is the best candidate in this race. He is the finance critic and current MLA from Kamloops. But we have ministers, former BC Liberal ministers. We have brand new people that are coming into the party. We have there was a guy named Daryl, and he used to in the 90s
just Daryl.
So he used to work for this grocery store called Save On Foods, and he would do these commercials called Daryl's Deals. He was like the CEO of Daryl's Deals, like 2 meatballs for $4.99. Daryl's Deals. So Daryl,
that sounds steep, Rach.
Right? Well, they were expensive back then too. But Daryl is in the race. Daryl from Daryl's Deals.
Wow.
And is
Daryl producing interesting content for this race? Is he
and
if you vote for me, 2 for 1.
Right? I know. Everyone's been digging up his old commercials. I said, if I was running Daryl's campaign, I'd be printing. They had cardboard cutouts of Daryl in every Save On Foods. Like, where's the cutouts? Come on, guys.
Exactly. Share the cutouts.
Interestingly, they did a poll on all 11 candidates, and Daryl was the second person, the most recognizable name, the second most recognizable, because he's a local celebrity in British Columbia. Everyone loved Daryl's Deals. So I think
who is the first name? Your guy?
Good question. It was not Peter Millibar. I can't remember who it was.
Who is favored to win?
So, I mean, I'm going to say Peter Millibar because I love him dearly. And if you're a BC Conservative member, you should look into him. But I think that Carrie Lynn Finley is a former federal MP. She's running. Her husband is a current BC Conservative MLA. We have Caroline Elliott. We have Ian Black, who was a minister under Gordon Campbell back in the early 2000s. And so there's a broad range of people. And why is that? Because the BC Conservatives are this quote unquote new party. I mean, they've existed. They've never held party status. And they're trying to define themselves. And so I think what we're seeing from the leadership race is people from all walks of the political spectrum on the right getting involved.
Wow.
Harman Bagu, he just joined the other day. He's another sitting MLA. So it's going to be an interesting race. Yeah.
Well, we've had our fair share of
Interesting,
exciting
races.
political stories. Now on to an unusual one, but let's give it up for the politician in the country who makes the most
Woo!
retail political headlines, and that has to be Ontario Premier Doug Ford delivers
Dougie.
again, makes an announcement, I think it was yesterday, saying that he told his education minister that every child in Ontario has to watch the men's and women's Olympic hockey game.
Yep.
In their school time.
Yep.
So, okay, this is,
Wait,
I've
so
been
did it
saying this
happen?
lately, and people, well, I think it did. I mean, I asked my kids today, and 2 out of 3 of them watched the women's game, today being Thursday, if you're listening to this on Friday, watched the women's game. Sadly, watched them fall to the Americans in overtime. My entire office watched too, and we all cried a little. So 2 out of 3 of my kids did. One, maybe, I don't know, maybe Vivi's teacher didn't get the memo on Doug Ford. But here's why I like this. I'm gonna say this because, as everyone knows, I'm the liberal on this podcast. But I say often on CBC, Doug Ford has grown on me. For every policy I don't like, I do give him credit for being an exceptional retail politician. He knows how to reach people exactly where they are. It is simple politics, but it is so effective. This is another example, kind of like Buck a Beer, where people like these announcements. They like them. This was he wants to be Captain Canada. This is another example of being that, making sure that everybody gets the chance to watch these important games, to stand united for Canada. And I'm going to give top marks to Premier Doug Ford this week.
Listen, I'm going to give him top marks for last week too, because we posted on the Beyond a Ballot Instagram. He made an announcement about fishing, and he was in his office in full fishing gear with a fishing rod, talking to the camera. I was like, this is the best political content on the internet. Go Doug Ford. We don't typically retweet people's announcements, but I was like, this is too good. It's hilarious. He got into character. He was wearing the vest and the fishing rod, and I was like, his team is just killing it with the messaging. It was hilarious. Yeah.
So good.
My question to you is, do you think he will go for federal leadership? Is this all
for Poilievre's job?
I don't know. He could be a liberal. You would know He's
better than
best
I would
friends
know.
with. Is this all to build up to at some point become a federal leader?
I mean, there's so much speculation, but I think he's really in his element where he is.
Yeah.
He's enjoying strong favorability, popularity. He's, I think, able to play nice in the sandbox with a lot of politicians from different stripes, which also makes him really likable.
Yeah.
Does he go for Poilievre's job? I think there's a couple of things that work against him. I understand his French is not awesome. That's a problem. Does he have the federal organization? I don't know. You would probably know that better than I would. And does the timing end up working for him? That'll be interesting to see, because if Carney ends up getting his majority, he's probably going to stick it out for another few years. There's a lot of speculation that he could call an early election because of his numbers right now in the polls.
Yeah.
If Poilievre were to lose that election, that job would be up for grabs for sure. That would be the time to go. I just don't see Ford pulling out that soon. Do you?
I think Doug could rally. I think the French is the biggest problem. I mean, you have to understand, so I worked on his brother's campaign in 2010, and I remember thinking,
That is so alarming, Rachel.
Well, 2010, you have to remember, he was Rob Ford, not the Rob Ford that we knew like years later. Like he was like a brand new politician, and he was running for mayor. And I remember thinking, okay, Rob is the politician and Doug is the businessman. And now Doug has really grown into this role of being this politician that everyone kind of loves, and they aren't sure why. Like it's
totally.
It's like he's crossing party lines, and so I don't think it's crazy to think that he could jump into a federal race. Obviously, of course, the French would be the problem, but people have learned French. Mark Carney has learned French.
I mean, it's totally possible. Okay, I have to ask you, were you working for Rob, like at what juncture were you working with Rob Ford in his very scandalous book chapters in his book?
Oh, no. I worked, I volunteered for Rob Ford in 2010. I gave out magnets in Dundas Square, Rob Ford for mayor with his personal phone number on them. And I was with Rob Ford the morning of his drunk driving conviction in Florida. When that came out, when that broke, I was like a very young staffer just running around with Rob, and all the national media wanted to talk to us, and I was by myself with him, and I had no idea what to do. So that was a big moment in my Rob Ford story. But other than that, I had a lot of friends that worked for him through his time as mayor, and really loved him, sincerely loved him. But I never worked with him in his office, in the mayor's office.
They still, like, his story still pops up? Like, I think that there was a documentary.
There was,
right?
Yeah,
a recent documentary on Netflix.
But Doug was not happy about that.
No,
I guess Doug did not like that documentary. So
Dougie doesn't want that one out.
I will say I did watch that documentary and think, wow, I remember that. Wow, I remember that. It was quite the era in the city of Toronto. You should watch it.
I haven't watched that.
It's quite
I should definitely watch it, especially with their mayoral race coming up.
That's right.
Hard to believe. I keep checking myself. Like, is that really happening this fall?
It is.
We have to get some mayors on the pod.
We will have some mayors
talk
on.
about some municipal issues, talk about the biggest city in the country and how that mayoral race is going to unfold.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be an interesting one. Toronto and here in Vancouver, where we have like 9 people running for mayor this time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be quite the race here too. So we'll have to dive into that. But for this week, we will leave it there. We've covered a lot of ground, including Doug Ford's fishing vest. So we're going to talk to you later. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. New episodes air every Friday.
Subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and find us at beyondaballot.com.